I was born in California and then raised in Oregon, but I was the one that always said, I'm not going to ever end up here. I'm going to live in San Francisco or New York and just live the city life. And I actually did marry someone from San Francisco, and we ended up living there for a few years, and that's kind of where it all started happening with the arts. I did shows there with the city, and then tourists would come through and buy art, and I built up my list and collectors, and there came a point when we had several children, and we looked around like, we need a house with a yard, and we need something for under $2 million. That's not a fixer-upper for $2 million. So Oregon started looking better and better, and my parents were there, and I always wanted my kids to grow up near Grandma and Grandpa, and so we ended up buying a house right down the street from them, and it's been fabulous raising our family there, and realized as an artist, I could really move anywhere. I didn't have to be in the city. I just needed a FedEx and a website and have my gallery selling art, and I could make any place work. And so Southern Oregon was the place that we decided to settle and raise our family, and it's been awesome. I went to college and I didn't even know what palette knives. I never studied anything. I never took a class with a palette knife. It was all portraiture and realism, and I just did figures and extremely perfect photographs, little brushes, oils, completely the opposite of everything I do now. But I just wanted to study it and to figure it out and understand how to paint the human figure and the form. But then after I graduated, I'm like, I'm not completely happy with this. I want something that would give me a little more freedom. I started getting a little bored of painting perfect people with smiles, and it didn't lend itself to it didn't make me excited anymore. But it wasn't until I went to Amsterdam and I walked to the Van Gogh Art Museum that I saw Van Gogh's paintings in person. Of course, we've all studied Van Gogh, but to see him in person and just that texture is amazing. How did he get that texture so thick? And the colors, I'm like, why the heck am I not painting with more texture? I started kind of thinking about my own paintings. I'm like, this is what makes me excited. Then why the heck am I not using these elements in my own work? And that trip was really transforming because I came home from that trip. I went to the art store right away, got every palette knife of every size that I didn't even know how to paint with the palette knives. I'm just like, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to get every kind of size I can find and shape. Who knew there was so many sizes and shapes, by the way? It's not just 4, there's hundreds. I picked one of each, brought it home, started to experiment with laying on texture. And it was completely different because I had been doing really smooth and realism. Then suddenly I'm scooping up thick paint and applying it to the canvas and trying to make it look layered, but not knowing how. And so I just practiced over and over, and I did 100 of them before I finally got one. I'm like, I like this. It's a poppy field. It's poppies. I'm like, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to bring this one poppy field, none of the rest, but this one. I'm going to try it out at my next art show. I was showing with the Guild of San Francisco, and on the weekends, outdoor shows, and then tourists would come in from all over the place and see our little art show and hopefully buy our paintings. And up to that point, I hadn't sold a single thing for months. I had all my paintings out, all these beautiful figurative paintings, couldn't sell a single one. And I was really getting frustrated. And this was kind of a make it or break it moment. I had these kids. I thought, am I going to just have to get a real job? As all of the haters that always laughed when you said, oh, I'm an art major, or are you going to be a starving artist? I heard it all. And it was one of those moments is this true? Is all those things that they've always said, is that how it's going to be for me? And this was my last ditch effort to be because after all these months of not selling, I'm like, well, this is it. If I can't figure out how to connect my art with the collector, then I'm going to have to do something else. And so I decided I'm going to bring this poppy painting out and let's just see what happens. So I brought it out to that show, set it all up. I was pregnant at the time, so just picture me huge. Oh, I had little kids too. And it was outdoors in the sun. But within an hour, this couple from Florida, they came through, saw the poppy. They saw all the rest of my paintings. Nothing but a beeline for this poppy painting. And they bought it. And I couldn't believe it. I called Matt, I sold a painting, and he couldn't believe it either. He was so excited. And I thought, okay, this is telling me something. This is saying that something about this painting someone else connected with. What it is, the color and the texture. And I knew it. I knew that that's what was the difference between my other paintings and this style. And so from then on, I'm like, I've got to figure this out. So I went back, and now I started doing more of those landscapes and brought them back the next weekend, started to sell regularly, and it just became amazing. Every time I became going from like the least selling artist to the most in a matter of weeks was just life-changing for me. And it was all about the texture, and I knew it, and landscape and color. And so I just implemented those two components, and it changed everything for me. It's been amazing.